All right. So after this very technically in-depth topic, we are going to introduce you into something that is a little bit more abstract, and it is still a big issue. So why would this topic even matter that much to us? Well, it matters to us as security professionals, but it also matters to us because we need to protect the people that are close to us, and by that I mean the people that generate revenue into our products as well. So we will first introduce ourselves. So my name is Mira. I am from a company that provides software to hospitality industry called News. I work there as a product security engineer.
Yeah, hi everyone, I'm Tomas. I'm working as security engineer at Neubit.
So, at first, we will dive into a topic that is kind of a little bit far from the main goal of this talk, but let's dive into it nonetheless. So, as you can see on the screen, there is an application. That application was published on the App Store, and that application was sponsored to appear on the top of the search bars. That application, once you as a curious user of it will download it and go through KYC, will do basically nothing. So you uninstall it, you go about your day, somewhere down the line you realize that somebody is using your identity to get some loans or whatever, right? So you report it, you're like, well, what's the worst that can happen right now? You Google for some other trading app, because, you know, you need to sell those stocks during the new presidency, and you will click on the first ad that is on Google. Voila, you ended up in the same place. So, while we are not going to be focusing on other platforms, it is worth mentioning that those platforms specifically that have ads generally are going to maybe target monetization a little bit more than the safety of the usual user. So we are talking about Spotify, we are talking about Facebook, Instagram, all of those advertising platforms that basically care mostly about the revenue.
So let's focus on search engines, because it's main topic of our talk. Here you can see TeamViewer example. You know, downloading software is pretty Wild West. Here, user looks for the software and there is ad. You probably can tell by the URL that something is wrong here, right? There are many, many other examples. Here, threat actors are focusing on Blender, which is graphical designer software. And before the vendors are legitimate site, free malicious ads are shown. If you, there is another example with OBS Studio, which is video streaming platform. If victim clicks on the link, he is landed to the site which looks like legitimate software site, right? Download software, hoping they will maybe stream something tonight. Instead, they will end up with malware, probably reinstalling their PC instead. Threat actors are focusing on technical users as well. This is example with Notepad++. Interestingly, for those of you who are lucky enough to see bottom of the screen, there is malicious ad displayed. Interesting thing is that if you look closely at the domain, malicious domain looks even more legit than the real one. And again, you are landed on the page where you will end up with malware. Here, interesting thing is that threat actors are offering Linux and Mac variant of the Notepad, Notepad++, which is not supported by the vendor, and this is another way how they are sourcing customers, because victims, because chances are that some users will look for Mac or Linux variant of Notepad++, because this is only the site offering such a software, then they may end up here.
Then we get into the more sophisticated ones. So most of us that use Mac, I would say almost all of us, will use Homebrew. So just look at the top of the screen. You can see that there is something that very closely resembles the brew.sh domain. It looks like that on the ad, right? It even has a sitemap. Everything looks nice and clear. And then you click through it and you end up on a brew.we.sh with a curl command that will inevitably cause you to install some backdoor malware onto your computer anyway.
Yeah. Do you remember the hype around DeepSeek? It gets like large media attention and everyone wants to try it, maybe to learn what happened on Tymanian skin and things like that. Again, you put the tool into the search bar, ended up the site. You have never been there, so you cannot tell if it's legit or not, and here you will again end up with the malware. And these things we saw, there is one common nominator, one common thing that they share together, right?
So it's monetization. And obviously those big corporations, as I was mentioning previously, and all of those advertiser platforms are going to aim to maximize the profit in vain of actually making the user suffer a little bit on the platforms themselves. So there has to be some rule in the universe that will cause it to backfire on them, right?
Yeah, imagine you are in some advertising corporate environment. You are managing Google Ads campaign, right? You want to change something, do something. You need to log into account. Chances are you will again search for Google Ads dashboard because you don't remember URL, right? And there is first link which looks like Google Ads platform.
And based on that, you end up in a place where the advertisers themselves supply the chain of attack with the accounts that are valid for advertising those other products, those other softwares that we've seen previously. And the number of those ads is so staggering that if we wanted to go through them, we wouldn't have a day. We wouldn't be able to do it in a day. So this is such a big problem that Google is so unaware and just not trying to even do something about it that, you know, who knows where it goes next.
Apart from being nice karma back to the Google, if you think about it from attacker's perspective, it's pretty smart, right? Because in this way, they are sourcing victims' accounts, so they are saving resources on, creating their own, going through verification process, submitting passports, maybe your passports, right, and things like that. Also, by this, they are saving money because for their malicious campaigns, they are using victims' credit instead.
Oh.
Sorry.
And this leads us to the emergence of a business model, believe it or not, which is phishing as a service. So in order to kind of get as big of a reach as possible, they are creating those, as a service types offering, right? That basically has a very similar model to any other SaaS. So you have your tiers, and then you end up paying about, on average, like $500 a month for something like this. This is also not the last time that you're going to be paying to the attackers or to the providers of that platform.
Yeah, you may be wondering, is this a typo? The thing is, if you, use ChatGPT and use wording phishing instead of phishing, suddenly all moral concerns are gone and you will get all you need.
And that's kind of getting us into the idea of how to actually operate with those platforms and how to even get in. So they are distributed from Telegram groups, and while there are so many of them, it is kind of hard to understand how to get into them. It is on the same level of getting into a Signal group chat of highly ranking US government officials. And it basically allows you to then take that kit and assemble it in such a way that it's as easy as really getting a box out of IKEA and boom, you have a wardrobe.
Yeah, once you have your kit sources, you move to campaign configuration. You buy a new domain. By the way, who loves the buying domains? A lot of us, yeah. Directors do so. So then you will set up your campaign, which is as easy as putting URL of the site you would like to mimic, you would like to clone into self-service portal, and boom, within a few minutes, you have brand new clone of the site you are targeting to.
And as I said, the business model doesn't end here, right? So once you actually get the data out of the victims, be it credit card details, all those things that might be relevant for a further sale, you still can supply or support your local provider. You basically pay them royalties on basis of the revenue that you're generating. And I think it's kind of a good idea to step away for a bit from that abstract layer and have a look at what the platform actually looks like, one of them. So at the very beginning, you would have, let's say, a superbly targeted phishing when it comes to those providers like DHL, whatever. And I know that many of us receive messages about a pending package somewhere all the time, right? So those are the sites that would land you there. They are not very sophisticated, but they do the job for the less tech-savvy users. But maybe let's have a look at how it looks now.
Yeah, here, this is the screenshot from a phishing platform where, as said, you will put your URL in and it will create clone of the site. It's similar to a no-code platform you may be familiar with, such as Power Up. It's pretty similar. It's no-code, it's easy to use. You don't need to have coding knowledge in order to use them. Only large difference is, I would say, that if you have some issues here, you will actually get help from the support.
Yeah, and basically on that previous screen, you could have seen all of those components that are on the front end of the application. This software basically allows you to put your fraudulent payment gateways in the place of a convenient one or a valid one. And then what else could you do, right? You launched your phishing campaigns on 7, 8 different companies with a convenient way to have a multi-tenancy application that allows you to administer it from one single pane of glass.
I'm pretty sure you can change the picture of administration interfaces if you want to. Yeah, there are many features. Some of them are pretty advanced. One technique threat actors love to use is sophisticated cloaking. They leverage data such as geolocation information, user agent, JavaScript, even sophisticated things as HTTP, accept language from the browser to hide malicious site from security researcher, security scanner, while still being accessible to the victim. I remember one story where from the customer CM we had information that customers is being targeting by the phishing on this particular domain name, and we want to, apart from blocking it, we want to report the domain to security vendors so no one else would fall for the phish. But due to cloaking mechanisms in place, neither we nor security vendor scanners were errant to access the site to confirm our reporting.
And then, after you're all done, you get to report on everything that you've gathered, right? You have a convenient way to actually use those credentials, use those credit cards, and maybe clone them, maybe create virtual credit cards that the vendor then puts into a burner phone and sells it. So just imagine that level of monetization that comes out of one simple thing, that they are just recycling that content over and over and over again, and they are still landing a lot of money out of it. And I think it is also important to step back and understand the history of this prevalent methodology. So while we are not going to be mentioning stuff like, the previously used techniques in 2016 with Adobe Flash, because nobody probably uses it anymore, it's mostly about targeting those as a service platforms. So in order to do so, you have to understand that at the very beginning you would have those DHL clones that are not very credible, yet they're still generated a lot of revenue, and it was lucrative to launch those campaigns for those people. So they ended up launching large-scale attacks, which inevitably led to a consequence from, well, let's say the good guys.
Yeah, in 2022, Microsoft researchers uncovered bulletproof link operations. It was the first time when really large-scale phishing platform as a service was uncovered, offering more than 100 pre-built templates for the brands and sites you are familiar with, such as Google, Microsoft, Facebook, etc. Later, in 2024, cybersecurity community was very amazed by the features of new platform they saw. It's called Darkula version 2. Again, even more sophisticated phishing as service campaign, more templates, more automation to higher cost of customization, enabling threat actors to launch really large-scale campaign.
And while we are quite acquainted, I think all of us, with Kuba Gretzky's Evil Jinx, for instance, there is still a difference between those things, right? Because this is a piece of software and they are offering a platform that is easy to jump into. So the barrier of entry is so much lower, and the conventional ways that were, the standard 5-10 years ago about having TOTP, MFA, or basically anything that's not, that's phishable, is right now going out of the windows because they can replay all of those credentials in real time. So basically they pivoted from being able to only harvest credentials to now being able to replay those attacks in real time and then hook some automation to the credential obtaining process. So who knows where we go next? And then this and all of these things are about trust, right? You trust your search provider that they will not end up showing you malicious content. We might not, the users do, and the users of our platforms do. And it is also important to understand that they are going to be targeting those industries that work with that model of economy of trust, because that model is just so convenient for the user to just kick back and, not care about anything else, that it is easy to exploit those patterns. So where better to start than retail?
Let's have a look at the problem from different perspective. Not a while ago, a customer turned to us with the problem that some threat actors are mimicking their site. They are retailers. They are selling goods for the customers, and the user flow would be user wants to buy something. So again, he will start with Google search looking for the brand name because everyone does that way. And in this practical customer, they use custom TLD. Nevertheless, customer Google for the retailer, clicked on the first link, right? Ended in their shop, go through purchase process, order a goods, and on the payment gateway part, they will skim their credentials. I think in this particular case, since were targeting check-based victims, they also offered a way to pay through your bank, where they will try to steal money from your bank account.
And this is just a convenient way, right? You're shopping for a last-minute gift again, and then you end up waiting for that package, and then a bank calls you that your credit card is being used in Belarus. So, yeah, things like that sadly still happen.
Yeah, let's add some emotions and psychology to the effect. Let's imagine you are traveling somewhere. How many of you were staying at hotel last night, by the way? A lot of you, right? Traveling at such is pretty stressful for many people. You are traveling often to destinations you don't know. And imagine you are sitting on the plane 20 minutes before plane is taking off, looking forward to be there to, checking at your hotel. When your phone vibrates and you see a WhatsApp message from your hotel saying, well, there was some issue with your booking. You are expecting to check in tonight, and please fix it as fast as possible. You have, 15 minutes to fix it. What would you do? This is another example of using phishing email instead.
And this is what particularly for me, it's a little bit closer to home because, as I've mentioned, I work in a company that is providing software to hotels, right? So it wasn't that long ago that we were facing a similar attack. the pathway is still the same. It is just a very generic targeting of the brand itself. So imagine our hotel user just goes to Google search, looks for our login. I don't blame them, honestly, because I couldn't possibly get where to download Brew, at the first glance, so I would Google it myself. And then after clicking on this ad that looks seemingly like appnews.com, they end up on a typo squatted domain that, in the search, it looked like a targeted ad that was targeted towards our product. But in the end, they end up submitting the credentials and everything else to the attacker. And in order to understand the modus operandi for them, it is convenient to go through the attack chain. So at the very beginning, you would be looking, or they would be looking at the threat actors into pathways to actually gather some information about your industry. Let's say, when do you target ads? Where do you target ads? What is the industry's specific working hours, peak hours? So they can understand when to launch those campaigns and get as much information out of them before they get taken down. Which, by the way, in case of a domain takedown, it doesn't take that long as with Google, because you submit a complaint to Google, you will get an email back in 4 days saying that there was nothing wrong with that ad, even though it was blatantly targeting something else. Then you get into a position where you as a threat actor get to set up that platform. As we mentioned previously, it is quite easy. So easy that you just put a URL into that software and it will generate everything. And again, Power App Simulator, technically. And yeah, you modify it to your liking, you get the payment gateway there or the credential harvester there, and you go on.
Yeah, once your brand new site is set up, you begin with optimization. And threat actors are very good at SEO. They are so good that even some seasoned e-commerce pros would be amazed by their skill. This SEO optimization elevates site ranking for these specific keywords to near to the top of the search or to the top. And once a site is optimized, it's basically a trap for the users. Using these specific keywords, you are luring users to your site, trying them to convince to share with you your credentials or download malware or ideally both.
And this leads to the same pathway, again, money. So once all of this is done, they monetize the data, they launch their campaigns that would target the customers of the customers, so on and so forth. And then you end up in a place where you understand that the funnel is actually looking something like this. So while the progression is kind of linear at the beginning, they are still learning from their mistakes and they are still kind of trying to play cat and mouse with us. So just looking at this, based on the amount of money they get, they understand that they, for instance, got taken down way too quickly, so they will start, again, just restrict listing the domains and the IP addresses of those people that were actually behind those takedowns. Then this leads to an optimization of the SEO again, because maybe they missed a point in the time, They are trying to target specific events as well. If you remember the Olympic Games, during that time, it was just insane. So they are very aware of what's happening in the world.
Yeah, let's have a look at conversion rates and maybe economic side of the things for a multi-chain attack. Journey usually begins with malicious ad placement, where thanks to optimized SEO, threat actors has as high success rate, click rate for their malicious site as 65%. Compare it to any other ad you or anyone try to run. Once ad is seen, user click on fake page and submits credentials or session is stolen. Now imagine that threat actors gained access to customer CRMs, for instance. From the credential submission, they are pretty efficient. They start to abuse platform as much as platform allows them. Would like to export your customers? Here you go. Would like to place some fake malicious order? Here you go. Or some platforms allow you to even communicate with your customers, so you can push customers of the victim on their behalf using their own tooling, right? And results? Studies suggest that these successful attacks are yielding return of capital employed as high as 260%. This staggering return creates powerful economics incentive for individuals who see these attacks as high reward investment.
Just mind you that was just for the people that actually buy those kits, right? There is no feasible way to kind of understand what the return would be for the people who actually provide those platforms.
Yeah. So now where to start? Most of us have been for long familiar with, protecting your environment, your employees by using CMs for Microsoft 365, etc. We need to expand this protection for our platforms, for our customers and customers of our customers and our users.
But this is still where the issue kind of lays, right? You would say it has an easy solution. You can just ban the ads in the computers of your employees. Can you do that for your customers? You don't usually have access that close into the customers' networks and their ways of working, right? So this is also something that you need to tackle as a company. So obviously, if your user or if your customer falls for phishing, it is their problem, most likely, right? But you also need to understand that you need to make so many things that just happen to help the customer not fall for it. So I wouldn't blame it entirely on the customer, never, because it would lead to churn, honestly. And it needs to put you into the light of being a partner of that customer, not just a random provider.
Yeah, exactly. You need to bring customer into the process. Most of us are used to things like regular security awareness training or regular phishing campaigns provided by our customer, our employer. Customers doesn't have this tooling in place. So by communication, you need to explain to them why it's important to pay attention to certain things and bring it into the process, basically.
And for you as security professional, and I think that this has been a topic for so many talks, at least a glimpse of it was there always. It is important to stay close to what your product is doing. It is important to stay close to the table where the decisions are being made. And that kind of leads me to my favorite topic, which is security as a product partner. Because if you think about it and you go through your career, have you worked at a company that didn't take security seriously? I think that most of us have, right?
I see a lot of them.
Yeah. So in order to evade that, it is not only about the stakeholders not trying to give you buy-in, it's about you not being able to somehow supply the right reasons for that, right? So making sure that you are as open to conflict in a constructive way, and you're not trying to solve these problems with obscure solutions that would hinder user experience or generally any experience. Those things will lead you to be in a better position when it comes to the rest of the engineering groups. So just by that definition of launching a security awareness group like Security Champions, which helps a ton, and you would be surprised how many people care, is getting you closer to that. And if you are not able to put that foot into the door, just try something like, looking at an architecture diagram of a feature that has been already built and do a light threat model. Talk to the people that you know. It is all about networking. When you work with security, it's more about working with people. So understanding that is a pathway to what we launched as a product, Let's Talk. So this partnership helps you to stay close to issues like inconsistent logging or building anomaly detection in the product. All of these things. It is highly important to know what's happening under the table. So in the case of SEO marketing in particular, let's focus on the things that are out in the internet before you even start talking to the engineers, right? So just imagining that you need to be aware of the surroundings of your product and be aware of where the threat might be coming from, monitoring newly issued TLDs, monitoring newly issued DNS records on parked domains that might target you eventually, and working proactively on malicious domain takedown, either internally or with the vendor, is very feasible, because by that definition, you are already creating friction for the attackers.
Important part is anomaly detection. You have your data, you need to leverage your data and algorithms to tell you what's suspicious, where the anomalies are. This could be as simple as flagging out that user has logged in from country that he never logged before, or doing some things like impossible travel, etc. Those are good places to start.
And, while you might say that anomaly detection is already built into a lot of products that you use, it's not always the case with our products that we build ourselves, right? But even then, just to further prove your idea, there are so many industry-led threat intelligence groups, even though they are mostly targeted at IT procurement and all of these things, they still help a lot. You can make sure that you are sharing the IOCs with them as well, and making sure that you are on top of the game when it comes to vendor selection, because you will not burn out that much money and that much time with choosing the right tools for the job, or maybe building them on your own. And while you are at this stage, you can also make sure to give your customers some sort of a way to give you feedback on where the fraud is. You can essentially use them as your first reporting line, right? So if you have an abuse box that they are acquainted with, you are kind of helping yourself monitor digital risk, although usually it will be too late. But you're also, by that, indefinitely building a huge case for a more effective domain takedown. It's not going to be only about domain takedown. You are going to be able to take down multiple parts of the infrastructure. If you just consider the WhatsApp messages that we were showing, just putting it into a puzzle together and reporting it as a bulk will land you with a much better result.
Yeah, those are novel ideas, right? But building a product-led SOC is pretty hard. There are no silver bullet solution. There is no one-size-fits-all template. You need to, spend resources on custom tailoring things or your platform. For instance, you know your platform. If user logs into CRM, it's uncommon to export all the customers as the first step he's doing, right? Yeah. Automation is another important aspect of product-led SOC. Thing we haven't mentioned or articulate is that these targeting campaigns are happening extremely fast. The time window between at placement and user being pushed and it disappears can be as short as 20-30 minutes. Everything is happening extremely fast. If you are not responding to incidents in automatic way, in the moment you are responding to incident, attack is most likely, it's late already. And nowadays, yesterday we heard about AI less frequently than we thought we will heard. I don't know if the hype is over, but AI can help you leverage the data, the signals you have to respond to them more efficiently. I remember another customer where by leveraging things like AI, we were able to decrease workload on their L1 SOC analytics by 90% or so.
And then you get into the idea, again, of building that internal structure. And we know that performance-based or, bug-based incidents tend to be resolved quite quickly. When it comes to longer-running incidents in security, it is pretty hard to get a task force for it. It is pretty hard to get buy-in. So by proactively looking at it from the perspective of the previous parts, where you are trying to basically build your internal network and get the buy-in from the stakeholders like the engineering VPs and such, by that and showing the value once you're starting, you also build an internal network that is able to help you a lot with security incidents. And it drives initiatives like defense in depth and all of these things. into a place where you are just able to nicely tie those things together.
Yeah, topic is very interesting for security consultants. I'm not saying this only because I have incentives to do so, but it's always useful to have someone at your hand whose experience you can leverage to build solutions, avoiding dead ends and things like that.
And this also puts us into a direction of trying to build the most friction as possible for the attackers. Social engineering is not going to stop. So you can already think about the attacker already being in. How do you make it, harder for them to actually execute their actions? Even if there is none, how do you leverage that anomaly detection? How do you leverage that product-led SOC? Are you going to leverage it by trying to hit obscure pathways to eliminate the threat by 100%? No. The only way to eliminate it by 100% is to just go out of business, right? And if you're not in the partnership phase with the customer, you might as well. So understanding that pathway is super important, and making sure that you are maybe putting in just a few branches here and there, and then by that, breaking that pathway for a clear-cut exfiltration of data or credit card fraud to the attackers is hugely important, because there is essentially no silver bullet.
Yeah, that's right. We love the solutions that will solve all of the problems we had. I remember discussion with another customer when they were trying to onboard a user to MFA. The argument was that, 10% of the users doesn't even have smartphone. So instead of rolling the rest and figuring out later, they spent months by finding ideal solution. And let's stick with MFA example. You may remember the funnel. Imagine the scenario where you successfully onboard only 20% of your users to phish-proof MFA. The impact on economic side, on threat actor side, is during the lower conversion rate, ROC is dropped by 60%, which is huge impact on attackers' revenue.
And at this point, if we understand how to partner up, how to build those things, we are on a pathway to be more proactive when it comes to further and future-based, let's say, social engineering practices into that land the customers into the hands of the attackers. And by that, you are already halfway there, because you are seen as a strong partner.
Yeah, remember, phishing aren't only emails, and build product SOC, because at the end, building solutions like that, you are signaling to the world that you care about your users, your customers' security, and in the end, companies who are willing to invest in their user security have some competitive advantage.
And this is where our story ends, but it doesn't end there. It doesn't end there for the industry. So if you wanted to look at the resources that we were using, or generally just connect with us, please use either the tiny URL or the QR code. And I would very much like to thank you for your attention. And also we have some time, so if somebody would have any questions, please just... I see a hand there. Do we have a microphone, or... Doesn't seem like it. Can you shout? How come, right? So that is a very good question. So Google allows you to use click trackers. If you're using click trackers in the tracking campaign field in the Google ad issuance, you are able to submit the ad at the very beginning with the legitimate site. And then once that's verified, you just go back to the click tracker software and you replace that.
Basically, you are setting a campaign on your target victim domain using click tracker or link tracker, which you have under the control, and when you want to redirect your victims to your site, you are changing the parameters. This is also like a place where you can implement cloaking, redirecting only selected set of your victims to your phishing site and keeping the rest on the real one. Yeah, this is exactly with the ads, because ad looks legit, right? Because the URL on the ad looks like legit site because it is, but the chain of redirects lends you to fake one.
Yeah. Oh, there is one more, please. Oh, that's a great question. Yeah, legal response to Google with this particular case. I will tell you how it works, right? So you submit a takedown of an ad. 4 days later, you receive an ad. Exactly. This is exactly what it depicts. You receive an email back that they found nothing fraudulent with it because the window of the advertiser was like 20 minutes. They are not really tracking those changes in the click-through email or the click-through link because that link is not under their jurisdiction. And then, if you want to dispute it, you can do it in a way that you are basically submitting a lawsuit against them, and that's it. And we've had some experience with talking to Google directly. They don't care. Nope. No. It's just a sad place that we live in. Because, again, money talks.
And another aspect is that those things are happening extremely fast. So once you have your malicious ad, in the moment you are responding, it's late already because chances are that some users were already saw the ad or get credentials stolen.
Fantastic. Do we have anyone else? Doesn't seem like it. So again, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And it's been a pleasure.